join. And I think we're good to go. Okay, there we are. Okay, so we have our next presenter, which is Sharyn Coleman, who is going to teach us about the Genius Genie. I'll leave you to it.
Thank you, Rachel, and welcome. I am indeed going to introduce you to the Genius Genie, and I am going to do that through the power of the breath. So it wouldn't do to have a discussion about the power of the breath without first breathing. So I would like to invite you to place your hand somewhere on your body. I have naturally chosen my heart, but just place your hand somewhere on your body where you feel comfortable. And just set the intention to fully arrive into the sun, and take a couple of breaths with that, 2 or 3 breaths. And as you're doing so, imagine the other people that we're sharing this space with. So let's breathe together. There we go. I don't know if you felt that, but I just felt myself settle into my chair and felt myself arrive in this electronic room, this space. And you might want to just remember, or just be aware of, where you put your hand. It may have been that my instinct touched my heart, drove where you put your hand, but it would be interesting, or an observation for you to take away, where you put your hand. So without further ado, today I'm going to introduce you to the Genius Genie. And unlike the genie of the lamp, which you first have to do quite a bit of searching for to find that golden lamp, and then you have to protect it from the baddies who want to steal your golden lamp. And then you only have 3 wishes, so you need to give really careful consideration to the 3 wishes that you choose. I would like to introduce you to your very own Genius Genie that you get to keep forever, that you get to interact with whenever you want to, very similarly to the way we just interacted with the breath and arrived into the room. And this Genius Genie, this wonder will never leave you. So you may interact with it as many times as you wish. There is no limit on the scope and the experience that you can have when you actively choose to work with the Genius Genie. So first of all, thank you for inviting me, Rachel. And just a very, very brief introduction to me. My name is Sharyn. You'll see from the bottom corner that it's spelled with a Y, so I quite often introduce myself as Sharyn with a Y, because that's quite a lot of the work that I do. So the work that I do, my name perfectly illustrates. So first of all, the SHA. I work with people to take sacred heart action. So people who are looking to make a difference with the world and need some help just to bridge their vision with the outside world. And then the final 3 letters of my name are YN, remembering your nature. So remembering who you are at your very, very core. Remembering the world that you live in, the cycles that you go through, and cycles that the world that we live in goes through. And the first one of that, of course, is the breath. That cycle in as we take our first breath in, and then the cycle out as we let go of the toxins or the things that don't serve us. So it's not surprising when I came across breathwork from this place of being really, really aware of cycles, particularly, not limited to, but particularly in the business world, where the world we live in is very, very driven. So you must go live on your Facebook page every day, twice a day. You must have constant communication, constant broadcasting, constant movement, always be busy, always be doing. And of course, that is not the way of nature. Nature has cycles. And this whole celebrating spring, this whole event, that was the word I was looking for, this whole event is about the movement from our winter into our spring cycle and about us wakening up. So that's a brief introduction into who I am and how I work. My favourite way of working is with the breath, and we're going to do some breath together during this session. First, I wanted to draw your attention to what Rachel called this session. So Rachel, I offered to do breath work or to introduce breath work, and Rachel called this session, or popped me in the space on the program that was called intuition and channeling. And it was that got me. I've already had the experience of the Genius Genie, but it was that topic of intuition and channeling that I just knew was the right thing and what I needed to share with you guys. So if I can get clever, and I'm not missing anything here, but if I can get clever, I'm going to share my screen with you. I don't have very many slides. I'm very happy to create a PDF and share them with you. So you don't need to make notes, you can just enjoy the session. Now I'm hoping that you're seeing here on my screen my chaos to calm ladies. That kind of jumble of crazy madness on in our heads, and then that moment of light bulb genius that also sometimes goes on in our heads. And I've got a flashing screen. That's not good. I may need Rachel to help me with this, or I'm going to move to the next slide and see if that has stopped. Excellent, superb. So intuition and channeling, it got me thinking about how I refer to these things. And as I was thinking through the various different areas of both intuition and channeling, I realized some of the words that I used, and I've popped up on here the definition and some of the usage of the words and the root words. I love root words. Root words are one of my favorite things. They give us such an insight. They give us such a view and a vision into the original use of and the start of the word. So as I was thinking around this subject, I realized that I use the words intuition, instinct, insight, all interchangeably. I use them with the word innate, as in something that is within us and is within us without us even trying for it to be. Then I realised that I don't use those very same words with channeling, because I see channeling as something that happens without of us. So we are channeling a guide, or we are channeling a being that is not within us, that is without us. Maybe we are channeling source, whatever that means to you. And so I decided to focus very much this presentation on the intuition side of things, and to share with you my view of the three brains, or my guidance on the three brains. And it's very interesting that the only presentations or the only conversation, apart from the very beginning of the session yesterday, that I've managed to get to, Amanda talking about gut health and how that impacted our brain health. Louise introducing us to the heart and how that relationship with our heart can enhance and expand on our life experience. And then Josie giving us a great presentation on connection and communication, and very much focused on how we are connected and communicate, or how we show up in relation to others. Now, I think our intuition and our channeling is how we connect and show up with ourselves. And that is the basis of our Genius Genie, because we have within us three brains. Our gut brain, and I always want to touch my belly when I say this, but our gut brain, our instinct, the oldest part of our developmental brain, and it's the place from where our survival sits. So responsible for our autonomic nervous system. You'll probably know it as kind of fight, flight, or freeze. And I love flop, which I was introduced to recently. And in our last session, we had a great conversation in the chat about our cats. And I have a very interesting flop story about my cat, but not for right now. We then have, and Louise gave us a beautiful presentation on our heart brain. And again, look, I'm touching my heart. And our heart brain was developed second. It's the limbic part of our brain where we process connection and contact. It's where we get creative. It's like the home of our humanness and the seat of our compassion. And it is that place where we have our intuitive knowing. So we don't necessarily know why we know, we just know that we know. And it is that place of heart that guides us on our soul most passionate path. And then we have our mind brain. Again, touching. Josie, you'll be seeing my hand movements in this and be aware of how I use them for visualization. But we then have our mind brain, the prefrontal cortex, where we house our reasoning, or where we get those light bulb moments, those moments of insight. It's where our curiosity lives and our innate intelligence. And also where we store our learned intelligence. So intelligence is not just our book learning or our academia. Our intelligence is also that we know innately, that we know from within us. And so I was tuning into my heart and tuning into my mind, because in my gut brain I had a little bit of not quite 100% happy with some of the rhetoric that I was hearing and experiencing as I was doing my curiosity learning and listening to others who were speaking often about how we need to move from our hearts, not from our brain. So at the time, the things that I was listening to were very much dependent, or very much circulating around that Heart Math Institute, the following your heart, the spirituality of your heart, and of it being more important than your head. Now, being an air sign, being naturally curious, and having my language of trust, which if we have time I will get to at the end, where my language of trust is knowing. My gut brain does not settle down until I've managed to work it through to a place of knowing in my head and in my heart. So I was in that space wondering, being curious about this whole heart brain, mind brain, gut brain, and how they worked and how they were important and what was most important and what should you be running or experiencing, how should you be experiencing life, which brain should you be giving the priority to, because of course they all have their place, and I don't believe there is any one part of us, as in our whole humanness, or any one part of us as part of the collective humanness, that is more or less important than the other. I think they all have equal value. So I was chatting to my guides, asking, come on then, give me a little bit, show me, help me calm this instinctual discontent that I have, and show me something. And what, I used the wrong button there, there's a little bit of a tech issue. And what I was shown was firstly this. So I'm sure many of you have come across the chakras, how they are built, from the root chakra up through to your crown chakra, the various colours associated with them, the various functions of them. I've even done a shamanic journey with each of my chakras, and I have a power animal for each of my chakras. So I have a chakra power animal totem, and it's always, or nearly always, designated like this image that you can see here. And what my guides showed me was this. I'm going to leave the words there and show you the first one. When we are in neutral, then we can think of, or we can imagine, our chakras in a straight line, like when our car is in park, or when our car, we're idling. So we are active, so the engine is switched on, but we are idling. And then what my guide said to me was that actually, when they're in use, they're not often in use in a line like this. So our root chakra at the bottom stays connected to Gaia, the Great Mother, and our crown chakra at the top stays connected to Source, whatever that means to you. This is a place where, for me, where every truth is valid and is true for you, as long as it's yours and you've adapted, you've embodied it for yourself. And what the guides showed me was that our mind, or third eye chakra, our sacral, our gut chakra, and our heart chakra actually move together in a pyramid, joined together by our solar plexus chakra, that golden thread of who we are, and that they move around our throat chakra, our voice, the bridge between these three brains, and our talk to ourselves, so our inner talk, or our talk and our communication outward with the world. And that sometimes it's appropriate for our mind to head up the pyramid, because sometimes we need to have that mind brain, that logical brain, at the front of the charge. However, sometimes it's our gut that's in charge, and we need to have our gut brain at the head of the charge. We need to be hooked into those instincts, those survivals that enable us not to be eaten by the saber-toothed tiger, or actually, like me, approach burnout because I didn't listen to my gut and I didn't step back when I needed to. And then, of course, we have the times when our hearts need to be leading, when we need to lead with compassion for ourselves or for others, or where we are looking to lead from a place of passion, where you just have a knowing and you don't know where it came from, but you just know that it feels right. And there's a wisdom to it that is beyond the wisdom in your mind or beyond the instinctive pull of your gut. And so this is a wisdom that I was given from my guides channeling, when I was exploring the premise of these three brains, how we connect with ourselves and communicate with ourselves, and how we give preference and priority to different parts of us, and how this is actually situational rather than absolute. And so we come back round full circle, and I'm going to leave this one up for you to read. We come back around full circle to the Genius Genie. So the absolute, without a shadow of a doubt, number one way I have found it easiest to speak to my Genius Genie is through the power of the breath. Very specifically, a type of breath called conscious connected breath work. Now, when you use conscious connected breath work, I'm actually not going to do it with you guys for very long, because it is really important that you're held and that working with this kind of breath is facilitated, because it does have some contraindications, and I would like to draw your attention to them in the bottom of the screen. If you, as you are reading through any of these, have any of the contraindications that are in here, you can still breathe with us. And as you experienced at the beginning when we joined the group just with 3 breaths, it's a beautiful way of arriving. But for those of you who would like to give it a go, I would like to invite you to connect with your Genius Genie through the power of conscious connected breath work. I have never, in my time of using this breath work, yet to have a situation where the Genius Genie has not given me some absolutely incredible, amazing insight that I don't believe I would have received had I not employed the power of the breath. And it's not always. Sometimes that wisdom comes from my gut. Sometimes that wisdom comes from my heart. And sometimes that wisdom comes from my creativity, imagination, or innate wisdom in my mind. But always it comes. Now, this breath can be used in various ways. So it can be used for healing. It can be used for trauma release. I could evangelize about this for some time. I am not going to. I'm simply going to invite you to explore it with me some other time in a slightly longer, slightly extended session, and you will find me. You'll find me there at Breath of Business, and I hold I hold a mini breathwork session with a very small group at the moment, newly formed, a very small group of soulpreneurs, so entrepreneurs who are following their passion and making a difference in the world. And we meet on the quarter moons, on the actual quarter moons. So today, for example, is the full moon. So very soon after this presentation, I'll be rushing off to hold that space. So I'm not inviting you to that one. You need to stay for Rachel's last presentation. But do think about joining me next week. The third quarter moon in this Pisces moon season is on Sunday at 4 p.m. and we will do a breath work then for 20 minutes. You could also go to my teacher, Benedict Beaumont. You'll see his details in the bottom corner there. Make some breathing space. He hosts a free breathe on a Thursday evening, GMT UK, 8:30. I will start again. No, 8:30 UK time, so it will be British summer time. So yes, there are two places you can experience more of the Genius Genie through the breath and or other healing. But for now, what I would like you to do is to think of, or what I am inviting you to do is to consider a sticky issue, something that's been going on in your mind, your body, your emotional body, maybe your spiritual body. Something that you would like a little bit of insight. You would like to access your innate wisdom. You would like to rub the lamp and summon the Genius Genie. And whilst you're considering that, I'm going to demonstrate to you. I'm going to close this out now so you can see me. And if we have time, I'll come back to the languages of trust. I want you to be able to see me. So the way we do conscious connected breath is we open our mouths and we breathe through the mouth, not the nose. We take full body breaths that start at the bottom of our root and come up and out, even into our back, so through our whole body. We take an active inhale, so we are breathing in what we need, and then we take a passive exhale of just letting it go. And yawning, Rachel, oh, I could talk for yawning or about yawning for an awful long time too. Yawning is our truth beginning to open up and to express. Really powerful thing just to actively yawn. Anyway, we digress. I need to go back to my 4 stages of breathing now. So firstly, mouth open. Maybe work your jaw a little bit to loosen it off. Secondly, full body breaths, starting at the bottom and breathing with your whole body. Third, an active inhale, so actively bringing we need, and a passive exhale, passively letting go of what we don't need. And then the fourth step is to keep that breath circular. So there is no gap at the top or at the bottom of the breath. It is constant. So I'm going to do a brief demo. Okay. Now, just to remind you of the contraindications, this is really powerful and activating breath. It actually changes the chemistry in your blood. So it changes the chemistry in your heart, in your mind. That has an impact on the rest of your organs. So you do need to be held when you do this breath. So if you feel more comfortable, you can do the active inhale, passive exhale, and the circular breath. But instead of opening your mouth and breathing through your mouth, breathe through your nose, keeping the breath circular. So again, a little demonstration. You will still have a really powerful meeting with the Genius Genie if you do this. And you can, of course, simply place your hands on your heart and through your heart. So I would love some thumbs up. If you can thumbs up on the screen just to let me know that you are happy. And equally, if you have any questions, I'm seeing some golden thumbs. I like this. Oh, and a blue heart. Wonderful. If you have any questions, just bob them in the chat box and I will try and answer them before I just go into a very quick guided meeting of your Genius Genie. So first of all, I would invite you to bring back to mind the situation that you would like to take to your Genius Genie. You might want to write it down on a piece of paper. You don't need to, but you might want to. And then I would like you to place that into the pocket of your heart, or fold the piece of paper over and just put it to one side. Because the breath has incredible wisdom and will go where it needs to go. Quite often what we want is not necessarily what we need, and the breath will take you to the place that you need it to. And then, as I've had no questions in the chat box, I would invite you to close your eyes. But if you would feel happier with your eyes open, then just limit your gaze. So kind of just make your gaze a little bit dull, so you're not just out of focus a little. Pay attention to the sound of my voice and make sure you feel comfortable. So adjust your body if you need to, and make sure you are supported by the chair or the sofa or even the floor. And make sure you feel safe in the space where you are. And then I'm going to invite you to place your hands on your gut brain. And I'm going to invite you to take just 4 breaths. Using conscious connected breath if you are comfortable, have no contraindications and you feel safe. But using circular breath through your nose if that is more comfortable for you. And we are just going to move up through these 3 brains in exactly the same as messages move up your vagal nerve, starting in the gut and then moving up. So let's take our first 4 breaths with our gut brain, just allowing the breath to go where it needs to. Allowing your breath to turn back to normal, and placing your hand on your heart and repeating with another 4 breaths. And then allowing your breath to return to normal. And then placing your hands on your head, on your mind, and just repeating those 4 conscious connected breaths. And then just allowing your hands to go where they need to on your body. Allowing your breath to return to normal. Just tapping your chest a little bit with your fingertips, just to bring yourself back into your body, and opening your eyes and getting with the screen in your own time and whenever you're ready. So, how was that? What did you activate? Did you activate your gut brain, your heart brain, your mind brain, maybe all three? Did you get a moment of inspiration? Did you get a feeling or a sense of connection within those three brains? I do appreciate that's a lot of questions to throw at you after you've just spent a little bit of time in a powerful breath work. So I'm not going to expect answers from many of you, except to say that's just a teeny tiny taster of how you can access your very own inner Genius Genie anytime you like, with no tools, no special equipment, just you and your inner Genius Genie. And Louise, excellent. I can so pleased that you felt the connection between all three. We have only just taken 4 breaths. The first time I was introduced to the breath, I breathed for half an hour and I sobbed. I had such an emotional release. I sobbed the full half an hour, and I had no intention of that happening. The next time I breathed, just to give you some balance, I had the most blissful experience I think I've ever had. So yeah, it certainly will lead you on a voyage of inner discovery if you want it to and invite it to. And finally, I think I have a moment or two. I'm going to share my screen with you again and just talk very, very, very briefly about the languages of trust that I mentioned earlier, because I noticed, I think it was Laura who said she was interested in the, I know it was Louise who said she was interested in the languages of trust. So we all have a way of speaking or a way of communicating between ourselves and the world. And for each of us, it is different. I think Louise and Rachel had this conversation in their session about how one person's heart speaks to them in a completely different way to another person's heart speaking to them. And these are the 7 languages of trust, of inner trust, as shared with me by one of my teachers, the Starlight Temple. I did my channeling training with the Starlight Temple, and we started by connecting to our hearts and by learning our own inner languages and how we communicate with the world around us. So this is how we confirm or make a decision. So know that we have clarity before we make a decision. And some people, they may ask for synchronicities and signs. So show me a sign, universe or source. For some people, when they're out in nature or with the earth, they somehow get a knowing of what the right way is to go. So a walk on the beach or a walk in the forest or running, but being outside in nature. Some people really feel it strongly in their body. So there will be, maybe that gut instinct, that tension in your gut, and you know in your gut that something is not quite right. There's a physical sensation in your body. Some people completely and utterly trust their guides. And whatever happens, as far as their guides tell them, is the truth. For some people, it's source or a Godhead. And I said, for me, there is no one truth. So your Godhead is true and right for you, just like mine is true and right for me. Some people are happier actually when they don't know. They're happier in the mystery. And so they know they're on the right path where they don't really know what they're doing, but they're going ahead anyway. And then there are other people like me for whom a knowing, there's a connection to that I have a connection to my higher self, and I simply know when I know. I can be reading some research and I know whether that research is true for me or whether it is not true for me. And I don't tend to progress when I don't really know. So that is my language of trust. I don't always listen, good grief, no. I quite often get on with things and then think, well, you knew you shouldn't have done that, but I do it anyway. So, Rachel, if you'd like to bob back in, that's the end of my little introduction to the Genius Genie. And if we have any questions, I'll do my best. And if I don't know, I'll breathe into it.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. And not know what to expect at all, and there's nothing like I expected, but it was fabulous and absolutely made me a massive decision that it's going to cost me quite a bit of money. So yeah, something that I was going to do that I've just the inspiration that I don't need to do. That's not going to cost. So it's not going to cost me. So very interesting.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I think the knowing thing was interesting because I don't know whether you've seen what I'm doing with my color process, and there's so many things on that I see with the chakras and with color, and I did a course about 20 years ago about color, and on the second module I was like, this is wrong. I don't agree with it. It's not saying what I think it should say. So for the last 20 years, I've been toying with doing this colour project. And every time I've told myself no, because I don't. Why do I think I know this stuff? And you've just told me that I do know it and get on with it, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are so many truths out there. My 2020 journey has really been about truth, and about being comfortable to voice my truth.
Yeah.
And I don't have time to tell you my path, but it goes up and down. It goes up and down like crazy. And I have had so many moments in time when I knew that I knew something was truth.
Mm.
And then the year after it wasn't anymore. And so I stopped trusting myself because I didn't think I could discern truth. And what I've realized is that truth is subjective. It's only true in the moment for the person that it relates to. And that part of the power of truth is simply in knowing it for ourselves, but also knowing that it's ever changing. There is nothing in nature that stays the same forever. Everything has a season. Everything is a birth, a life, a death, and a rebirth cycle. And so it's true for you, Rachel, so therefore it will be true for others, and is a truth that can be expressed and has a very valid place in the world.
Very good. Yeah, that's. I normally I have got a lot to say, but I'm a little bit. I don't know whether to say shell shocked. I don't know. It feels a little bit like I need some processing time now. Yeah, that's great. I'm not sure what. I know in the comments there's quite a few comments. People loved it. Felt comfortable, comforting, and powerful. And I can't say any more.
Yeah, it is. Breathwork is the single most transformational thing that I've come across. And I don't know why I'm surprised by that, because it's the first thing we do. We breathe in and then we express what we don't need and we breathe out. And that is in itself a transformation. So why it surprised me when I realized just how alchemical and how transformative it was, I don't know, but it did. So I think it has always been my response that after breath, I need just a little bit of processing and settling down time. And we at the end of every breath work, we have a sharing session where, for those who want to be witnessed, there is a there is a place for witnessing.
Excellent. Yeah. So I think the best thing that I can do with this is, obviously it's gone live in the Facebook group, and we'll be popping it on YouTube. If you just let me have the links so that if people want to know more, they can contact you direct. We'll leave it at that and let people process.
Well, I'll come to a table in the lounge, and if anybody wants to chat about it, it's nice to be able to see people's faces.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to chat about it in the lounge, I'll stay there for the next 10 minutes.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks ever so much for coming.
Take care, everybody. Thank you for listening.